Here we go. It's a beautiful Parisian day, which means that it's kind of gray, threatening to rain. And hey guys, and it's off to the Louvre.
That's a good idea.
And I don't know if you guys have noticed, but I made a recent purchase. Got a scarf. My friend from Parsons, you know, they're all design students and stuff. Helped me pick it out. Hope you like the color. It's quite voluminous.
Voluminous?
It's quite voluminous.
Nice word.
But I think it works, and it actually is keeping me warm because it's getting chilly. It all looks so good. Together. Even those little street lamps. I really get a kick out of these cars. Look at that car. It's as if you could just watch. It's like you could just
you can pick it up, right?
grab it and ding and let it go, you know? It's crazy. Look at this. Look at it. Look at the size of it. So Louvre was a palace and then a prison. Like pretty much that's what the French did with every palace they had. All of these beautiful palaces.
I would love to stay in that
And then
prison.
they had a revolution and they just turned them all into prisons. It's really messed up actually. And they just, arrested all the intellectuals and anyone that had money, and they just imprisoned them. Kind of messed up. Egalitarian. As we transfer to line 1, the sheet line. It's like the line that goes along the right bank of the Seine. And it's a touristy line, so the cars are all connected. There's no doors between each car. You can walk down the whole train. It's very fast. It's just forever through the whole train. It's pretty sweet. That's it. This is the Louvre exit, and we actually have art hanging out. It's crazy. Right in the subway. Wouldn't find that in New York. I just had something very Parisian happen to me. It's touristy. I had a young, innocent-looking girl come up to me and pick up a ring on the ground in front of me that was gold. I mean, golden in color. And she says, "It's gold." And the scam is that she'll offer it to you, and you have to pay her money for it. It's not gold. That sign says Point Neuf. Pont Neuf. Pont Neuf. Pont Neuf. Anyway, that's where D'Artagnan ran into the Three Musketeers in the beginning of Dumas's epic and challenged them all to a duel. Pretty cool. I always wanted to go there. Perhaps I'll go there later. Voila. Well, we tried. We lost Margaret. We told her that we were supposed to meet at Quai Paris. La Quai Paris. And she's like, no, by the pyramids. Of course, the pyramids are in La Quai Napoleon. We're starting La Quai Paris, which is this. And voila. Just like we were instructed.
C'est la bonne fille. So basically, this is Île de la Cité. So when you saw Notre Dame, you saw it over here. Sainte-Chapelle is on this side. The Marais, the whole marsh area is over here. And this is the Louvre, so the other side of the city. So the Paris, basically, the 3rd century BC, the extent of the city is just the island. So the city's founded here. Basically, the first inhabitants are the Parisi tribe, a Gallic tribe. So they give their name to the city. They're living here because they're naturally protected by the river. This is a huge marsh, it's uninhabitable. And where we are standing here was a huge forest. So it took about 1,000 years, this little diagram is actually really helpful. It took about 1,000 years for the city to kind of expand off of the island. So this dark orange color shows the sort of urbanized part of the city beyond the limits of the island. And you can see that at this point the king, this is Philip Augustus in the early 1200s, he builds a wall around the city. The marais, the marsh area is still uninhabited. You can see Ile Botserey, Ile Saint-Louis is here, Ile Notre-Dame is still uninhabited. But this actually gets inhabited 1800 years later than Ile de la Cité. So the city expands, and when the king builds the wall, he builds the Louvre as a fortress just outside the wall to protect the city. So this is the main entrance to the city, the river runs in this direction, and in the center is this huge circular keep from which they can basically see people attacking as early as possible. So the Louvre is essentially a fortress. That's its main function. It's a prison too, because why not, sort of use this big strong building to keep prisoners at the lower level, which you can actually see today. And it isn't until the mid-1300s where Charles V, the king, inverts the two. He says, you know what, I'm sick of living on the island where you have to get through these dark little narrow streets, there's disease, there's sort of public riots and things like that. So he inverts the two, transforms the Louvre into a palace, and that's the beginning of the sort of palatial history of the Louvre. This isn't until the mid-1300s. And the building actually looks like this. So this is the original Louvre. Very medieval, very Gothic. So this is true sort of what was known then as the French style, this Gothic architecture. Turrets and all of that, which were actually military fortresses. You may have seen some of that in the Marais. They have the Renaissance is another one of these Gothic mansions. But in any event, the king in the mid-1500s, and this is going to relate to the art that we're going to see today, Francois I, he's the great king who brings in art da Vinci to Paris. He says, you know what, this style, this Gothic style, is completely outdated, and it's time to build like the Italians. He just attacked Italy in the late 1400s, they went all the way down to Florence, they saw this great flourishing Renaissance architecture, comes back to France, and that's the end of Gothic architecture. In fact, it's the Renaissance that gives the name Gothic to this kind of architecture as an insult, as a derogatory term. So it's the architecture of the Goths, uneducated, basically tribes of the north who don't know how to design the classical order. So the Louvre begins to be basically demolished, and where we're standing right now, this is, you can see we're in the court carré, the smaller of the two courtyards of the Louvre. And the fortress that I just showed you was actually 1/4 the size of this courtyard, and we're standing more or less right in here at that huge fortress. So when Francois I demolishes that, this is the very first building that he built. So this is the oldest standing part of the Louvre. The Louvre today looks like it's all built at the same time, the same material, the same style. It's not true at all. This is from the 1530s, and it'll take another 350 years to finish the rest of it, built by many different kings. So if you look at this style, here, look at all of that relief work on the top. This is the first time they're doing this. It's very Renaissance. You haven't been to Rome yet. Michael said that a lot of you are going to Rome. So you're going to see that basically this is the then emerging Renaissance style with the sort of classical details. You have all of the semicircular arches. You have the pediments over the windows. But what they don't have in Paris, they're copying Rome, but what they don't have is marble. So if you look over the windows, you have these little blocks of marble. That's about as much marble as the king can get his hands on. So what it's built out of is limestone. I don't know if you talked about this already, but basically Notre Dame, Sainte-Chapelle, everything you've seen is built out of limestone, Paris limestone. The whole city's sitting on a massive block of limestone. So that's all they have to work with. The Romans used it to build their temples. The Gothic architecture is made out of it. And in the Renaissance, they were using that, but how do you sort of separate then your great sort of royal buildings from the average building if everything's made out of limestone? And they do that with this relief work. So that relief work you see in the facade was how the king could embellish and sort of separate his architecture from the rest of the city. And that will then get copied over the next few centuries. So Louis XIV, notably, the king who basically goes to Versailles, before he goes to Versailles, before he's even seen Versailles, heard of Versailles, he says this is where he's going to make the largest palace in France. He demolishes the rest of that fortress that we talked about, and he quadruples the size of this courtyard. So the rest of this is Louis XIV, and in basically 1648, he visits Versailles, and he says, you know what, that's it. That's the end of basically the Louvre being his palace. He says that's where he's going to build his palace. Versailles isn't just a palace, it's the capital of France. So he stopped building here. There's no roof on these two sides of the Louvre. It rains inside for 100 years, and he just abandons it. That's the first moment where this becomes kind of a public space. So the Tuileries Gardens, which were built for him, then become open, they become public gardens, and he brings his landscape architect out to Versailles.